whole wellness wave. Uh, there's this
Oh,
whole
sorry, Johnny. I just saw that it wasn't recording, so I wanted to catch it early. So please go ahead. I didn't mean to
No, no,
interrupt.
sounds good. But there's this whole wellness wave, and I think that this is super interesting because I think the wellness wave is going to be much beyond just the weight loss. And I think this is where the opportunity to really expand your overall practice is going to be huge. And this is where some of the compound pharmacies have already started making some moves on the back end. And this is what a lot of things are coming over the next 2 or 3 years, which is huge opportunity to still get ahead of it. Oh, so I actually gave this title talk and I put it back in here just because it was so interesting. Even at ASAP's just in Vancouver, they were talking about I guess 6 weeks ago now or so. They had me give a talk on, is semaglutide a thing in aesthetics, or is it for plastic surgery? And number one, I mean, that ship has sailed. And I'm not telling everybody that you have to be a weight loss clinic or that you need to offer these in your office, but if you're not speaking to those patients, if you're not acknowledging that those patients are out there, if you're not, training your office to be able to talk to the sequela of these medications, you're missing out on this massive, massive opportunity. So, whether semaglutide is going to affect aesthetics, that's already done. It's affecting us. It's here. It's now, and some good, some bad. And I do think there's, like anything where there's money to be made, there's been some bad actors and bad players in there, from everything from providers to compounds to other stuff. So that's why, stuff like Jeff, where there's people who truly, are trying to do this the right way, I think is absolutely key and priceless. I think that's some of the biggest questions we get is most of the people that reach out to me, they're interested in doing this, but they want to do it the right way. They want to take care of patients. They want to be super safe about it. And so, they just want to make sure they're doing the right thing about this. So appreciate Clarity having me and helping guide people, or at least helping them find resources to get to the right spots and do it the right way. I do think that the wellness wallet is the thing. No question, most people, especially right now in the economic times, have a fixed budget. And so, how are they going to spend that budget? How are they going to make the most of it? How are we going to get them to a good spot with that? And I think there's some really interesting stats I'll share with you guys. I'll tell you, and this was super interesting for me, for probably the last, I don't know, 5-7 years, the number one most visited page on our website was our pricing page. Probably not super surprising to anybody. People search pricing. We re-updated our website in February or March, something like that, and we're going through the pages. We created an Ozempic face page. Is now the number one most visited page on our website. The first 4 days that the page went live, 250,000 views in the first 4 days. So I mean, the point of that is just the page is okay. I mean, I wish I could tell you that I did something super spectacular. It just shows you how many people are searching for it, and how much lack of information there really is out there. And so, the idea that many people, were searching for that term in such a short period of time was absolutely amazing. And it stayed the number one visited page on our website month after month. I mean, for the last 3 or 4 months. And so super interesting. I'll tell you, I like to always leave people a few little eggs and nuggets throughout the talk. This is one of my favorite podcasts. It's 13 minutes, the number one persuasion hack. And the reason I bring this up at the beginning is if you don't have weight loss, if you don't have hormones, if you don't have wellness, and it's something you're thinking about, really decide whether this is something you want to invest your time or not into. It's 13 minutes. I made my office listen to it, and the whole podcast is talking about what's the number one persuasion hack. And he just talks about conviction. So, and most of us, if you're giving up your night, you truly believe in this. This is something you want to integrate, something you want to do really, really well. And sales is the transference of that conviction, and how well you sell something is how strongly you believe in it. And the best way to make somebody believe something is for you to actually believe in it. And most of us, when we're listening to phone calls from our staff, sometimes you feel like you want to reach across the phone and check a pulse. And is the person on the other end in your office even still alive? You're worried if you're going to do CPR on them, and it's just like, oh yes, Johnny's great. People lose weight. You'll love the medication. You're just like, holy shit. And so it's just, but it was super interesting, super resonating. And I think if you're going to do something, believe in it, be super strong about it. We rehearse this in our office all the time. So little pearl, if you guys have some free time on the drive to tomorrow, November 29th was the episode. So why does it matter? And I try to update these stats pretty periodically, and some of these are interesting. This one I haven't gotten rid of because it just blows my mind when you think about this. In 2021, you had 200,000, bariatric surgeries performed. And so, there was definitely people losing weight. We were definitely treating skin laxity. This stat's only about 2 months old. The Wegovy prescriptions, and Wegovy is probably the least prescribed, of the GLP medications. When you look at Ozempic, Mounjaro, Zepbound, all the compounds, all the oral stuff out there, 27,000 new prescriptions per week in the United States. 27,000. And so when people say, oh, it's already out there, everybody's on it. No, not everybody's on it. Actually, only a very small percentage of people are on it. I think we have a misguided view because of the world we live in aesthetics. I think, a lot of our friends and peers and other medical professionals had access to it, but you'd be surprised, when I'm just out and about, how many people have no idea about some of these medications, what they actually do. There's still a lot of misinformation out there. So still a huge opportunity, still a massive amount of people just starting their journey. A lot of people are looking for places to start their journey. I think some of the cultural changes about the medications has had a ripple effect. Most of you probably watched or at least heard or had patients or your staff bring up the whole Oprah Winfrey. For the longest time, she denied, being on the medications, and then finally came out and talked about her journey, held a whole kind of evening event about it and so forth, talking it. So I think it's really been, a change in a paradigm. It's funny because you've seen some of the celebrities talking about, and now that for a while, one of the trending things was the Ozempic compliment. And so, it's like, hey, Christy, you look great. How long you been on Ozempic? And it's like, oh, thanks. Yeah, it's going great. And so rather than being like a slight at her, it's like, oh, they think I'm on Ozempic. I look great. And so it's become a different mindset for a lot of people. And the fact that it was a trending, meme of this Ozempic compliment just shows some of the pivot shifts. I think some of it, with the medications and the way the FDA labeled this as chronic weight management, I think has helped change some of the mindsets. And this is what's super interesting. And I don't know how closely, not to get lost in the weeds, but I get so excited about it. I mean, there's even some studies that have shown a single gene therapy focused where the GLPs, that a single therapy, endlessly, gets rid of that hunger appetite stuff. This is an animal study stuff, so still a long way from us, but the fact that they've been able to isolate it to a specific spot that in these studies is super interesting for the future. Also, the Mayo Clinic recently had a study that showed they could predict how successful people are going to be on these medications. So when you start thinking about biohacking, you start thinking about these stuff. In the past, I felt like it was a term. Now we're getting to a point where not only can we test and diagnose stuff, we can actually do something about it. And that's super exciting. I just want to get this out there before I get too far along. I'm not telling everybody that you need to be a weight loss clinic. That's for you to decide if you want to offer these medications in your office or not. But I really, really do think wellness is going to be a factor in the aesthetic industry for the foreseeable future. I do think these medications are going to have a ripple effect. And I think at some level, you need to either be incorporating some type of wellness into your practice, or at least talking about how you treat the sequela of these medications in your office, and having a very clear plan for your staff. Because some of the things that are very easy and simple and straightforward for you, it was mind-blowing and eye-opening to me listening to phone calls when I feel like we do so much of this in our office and I talk about it so much, and there's still times I listen to phone calls and it hurts me a little bit on the inside. And so I think being super clear about that is huge. I've come up with this term that I call the Ozempification of aesthetics. And it's basically because I think there's real changes that have happened because of this. And something that we've talked a lot about, because in our practice, we've basically set it up. We have our wellness, our med spa, and then kind of our surgical procedure stuff. And if you think about it, you got your wellness side where you got, and we've changed it to wellness rather than weight loss, because I think weight loss is only going to be one portion of this. And I think there's so much more, and we've seen that ripple effect. If you look at the stats that I'll get into in a minute, it kind of leads to that stream. And that's where the wellness wallet can actually work in your favor if you're really strategic about it. So with the wellness, you have your weight management, lab optimization, and we'll get into some cool stuff that's on the horizon for that as well. Hormones, kind of that whole workup, because in the past, we had to send people out to other clearances. Most of us as that are surgeons on the call, it's always like, oh, we had to optimize people. We were always like checking labs, pre-albumins, those type of things in the hospital. And really don't do it in practice. And now there's such a good chance to get people into a good spot. I think there's some changing needs and priorities with surgery, I think some of the modern trends in surgery have changed. I'll tell you, lipo's gotten much more fun for me as the average BMI in our practice has gone down dramatically. And so, now instead of just a bulk, and you can really do some cool sculpting. I do think, treating skin laxity has been a huge part of our practice. There's a bunch of great energy devices out there now, and happy to answer questions about what we use. But I think if you don't have some idea for skin laxity treatments in your office or plan of what you're going to do, I think that's going to be a huge missed opportunity. I truly think it's a unique population. You have really young patients. You have patients with that mild to moderate weight loss. I'll tell you, the really cool thing about these unique patients is they're super responsive to energy devices. These are people on your billboard. These are people on your website. These are people on your TikTok, because they respond so well. They're home runs. In the past, we did all of our energy devices, whether it's RF microneedling, soft wave, Renuvion, body type, whatever you have in your office stuff. But a lot of times we were doing it on someone who was a bariatric surgery or was, 80 years old, because you didn't want to operate on them, and they had tissue paper skin stuff. So they had no collagen, no structural support. And then you're asking this energy to shrink everything up. It's hard to shrink up this like paper thin tissue paper that you just look the wrong way and it separates. And so, but these people who are really young, they still have a lot of collagen, a lot of elastin, super responsive, look absolutely fabulous. So I think there's some huge opportunity, and that rolls into our med spa, right? So these energy devices, these combination treatments, you have these really young patients. I still personally have a hard time offering a 20-year-old a face and neck lift, but you have these, 20, 30-year-olds that have lost a significant amount of weight. And so what do you do? Because they're like, I still have a ton of life ahead of me, and I'm in the prime of it, so I feel absolutely fabulous. I want to look fabulous too. So what do you do for those patients? And this is where I'm saying I think there's some really unique opportunities for us to create those treatment paths, right? Because we've never seen this amount of patients in those groups ever before. And so I think it's super exciting. I hope you guys are excited. Hope you guys can tell I'm excited about it, because I do love it. This is what's interesting. And when people talk about how many weight loss, opportunities are out there, you can see some of these stats, and some of these are mind blowing about how many adults are interested in weight loss, how many adults are still actively trying to lose weight. The really cool thing is, the majority of those, a little over half, are interested in just that 10 to 15-pound weight loss, right? And so most of those are the ones that are coming into our offices, because if you're offering these in your office, because most of the people that have multiple comorbidities, most of the people, in the triple digit need to lose weight, end up falling in other categories. And at this point, a lot of times if they have multiple stuff, our situations become a little different, as we've hired internal medicine and medicine NPs and PAs and so forth in our office stuff. But before that, we referred all those patients out. And so unique opportunity, because most of the ones coming into your office are going to be really young patients in that 10 to 15-pound weight loss, which are absolutely ideal med spa weight loss energy device patients. This is what's also super interesting. Article I was helped with about a month or so ago, about the 6 benefits of Ozempic beyond weight loss. And anybody that's followed this probably sees, I feel like every other month, you get a new FDA indication for the GLP medications, whether it's, for sleep apnea was a recent one, prevention of coronary artery disease and strokes, from a heart standpoint. There's a few more that are pending in terms of addiction, other things that have current trials going on. And so you're going to see a lot of these medications in circulation, even beyond just weight loss. And the sequela is you're going to see people with some skin laxity. And so I think those numbers of people with skin laxity is only going to continue to explode. I mean, there's some really interesting trials going on. I saw one where there's a trial going on right now for whether the GLPs actually, because they decrease inflammation in the brain, if long-term use can prevent Alzheimer's. Yeah, super interesting. Another kind of cool article is whether, the GLPs are the new statins. In whether in the very near future, if a lot of people are going to be put on a low dose, just base rate, just like you would a statin, just to decrease that inflammation, protect the heart and so forth. And again, some of that is way beyond and much smarter people than me working on those study stuff. But the idea is that you're going to see so many people on these medications with some of these. Definitely, we've added it to all of our intake sheets for anyone that does procedures, those type of things, to know that you're in a good spot from a anesthesia, even just wound healing, all those type of things. My personal journey, and probably half of you guys have seen some of this. I'm down about 85, 90 pounds at this point. And so, I started in October of 2022, actually started it myself, and then, was so life-changing for me. We brought it onto the practice. Like most people, it was a slow evolution. And so started with myself. Then we added it to our surgery patients that just had a BMI that was too high to proceed with surgery. And so, it was like, hey, let's do something. You hate to turn them away. I'll tell you, those consultations last the longest when you have nothing to offer them because you feel so bad. They paid their money, they spent their time. You want to do something for them. And so, those were hard. Now we can get them in the treatment. Then when we were doing it, it was like, oh, can my husband do this? Can I start this? And so we had such a demand that it just kind of exploded from there. So that was super, super exciting. But I'll tell you, it changed how I saw our overall practice. Our med spa, was just kind of trickling, probably is too strong a word of where it was going, because it really was going nowhere pretty fast. And I was super passive about it. And now we've changed it. So our med spa, our wellness, our surgery, and that's why we've divided them up into the three pillars, because that way we actually have monthly meetings, we have budgets for them, and then that way each of them have a focus. And I think, whatever you care about grows, and whatever you spend time on grows. And so, if it's just passive, it's passively going to do nothing. And so I think you got to be super active about whatever you want to keep growing and increasing. This is something I wanted to share, because this is how we've changed some of our practice. At the beginning, it was the weight loss, and we coach all of our patient stuff. I made some little life changes, vanilla lattes. I was doing 2 or 3 of them a day. That was probably 3,000 calories a day that was contributing to my pregnancy, of my tummy. But little stuff in terms of starting to work out, protein shakes, those things. Got to a good point about a year later, decreased, actually, converted myself to what we consider a maintenance dose. And then, really this year we integrated, and I started a lot of this myself in terms of doing some of the home labs. Actually found out my testosterone was a little borderline low. Most of that, I felt like I was working out. I was thin, but I wasn't fit. And so, trying to increase that. So that has been super interesting in our practice. We've now added hormones. We've added some of the peptides, some of the supplements. And this is a lot of kind of that wellness in terms of things. There's a few things I'm going to show you later that we're in the process of integrating that actually helps people through along this journey, that can measure your current metabolic, does a better job with body composition. So I love to give this to people, because also, so you can see how we've evolved. Also, if you're starting this out, making sure patients understand that it's a journey, and the idea that you're going to, especially someone who's looking to lose 40, 50, 60 pounds. I mean, it's not going to happen overnight. I also don't think that's safe for them overnight, and getting them to a good spot with all those things. We've really done something that we called, in the beginning, we called it marketing skinny to sculpting, this magnet leads. But, magnet leads, for anyone who's not super familiar, is just basically the concept that you're finding something that's a low barrier to entry that resonates with so many people, and that way you can drive them in and do other things. If you think about it, like for us, trying to market to just breast dogs is challenging, right? It's a very small percentage of people that are actively looking for a breast dog, very large percentage of people that are looking for weight loss, fitness, wellness stuff. So you have this ability to control the base. You have this ability to drive a massive amount of people into your office. And that's what we've done is we've used it to drive patients into our office, and then we do whatever they need to be best for them. This was a stat from Q Sites that they were kind enough to share with us, that from their stats, half of all weight loss patients were new to the practice. And so the idea that you're driving new patients into your office, I think, is key. Most of us want new patients come into our office, and then it's our job to keep them. It's our job to create a good service for them. And then we'll get into what those patients actually did a little bit later, which is interesting. This is kind of, just to give you a little idea of kind of how we grew. And here's the 2002, 2023, and then on the left you can see the March numbers. We were just shy of 4,000 patient visits for the month. And the idea for us is that we went from March of 2022 that we had something like 550, patient visits for the month, to 2 years later having 4,000 patient visits for the month. And so, the idea that you're going to be able to convert, and have surgery patients, have med spa, being able to just have those patients coming through the office every month, is key in driving your other services there. So I think it's super interesting. And I do think we've gone a little bit back into the spectrums, and that's what I try to show you over a course of a year. I mean, just like everyone else, we're a little up and down each month because of that. I bet August will probably be a little bit slower with back to school, and then end of year will be the mad rush. And so we always try to remind ourselves, in November, December, that you have slow months when you're working, day and night. But definitely feel like some of those spectrums are back a little bit. So I want to pivot a little bit into social media, and then we'll kind of get into beyond the weight loss, because I do think it's harder to capture some of those weight loss patients, as we were talking right before we got started. If you go back 2 years ago, just having the medications in your office was enough. People were going to show up because they couldn't get it anywhere. That's not true anymore. I mean, anybody who watches TV, which I actually still do watch regular TV. Yeah, you can see some of the ads. All our 20-year-old MAs make fun of me of why I watch regular TV, but and the radio. But I do both of those. But you hear the ads on the TV and radio. You see them on Instagram, TikTok stuff. So I mean, there's no shortage of areas to get those medications. And so now it's like, how do you make yourself stand out? And I think, really delivering a clear message. So when we do our social media, I was preach the 3 C's. So one is consistency. It doesn't matter how good your content is. It doesn't matter how excited. If you don't actually post anything, nobody's going to hear it. Only a small percentage of people actually ever see your single post. So you got to be consistent. You got to be on there every day. Which isn't spelled right, only 10% of people see your actual post stuff. So, do it every day. I started just good morning team every day because it made me just get started, because most of us like, hey, I'm going to post today. The moment you walk in your office, there's 16 questions. Now you're 30 minutes behind with your first patient. By the end of the day at 6:30, and you're like, I am wiped out. I haven't had lunch. I'm finishing my morning coffee that I only took 2 sips out of. And so, just doing something to start the day gets you in the pattern and just gets you going. We already talked about conviction. I think if you're going to talk about it, be super excited about it. That's what's really going to move the needle. That's what's going to, you'd be surprised how many people come in and be like, hey, I came to your office because I've been following your journey. I'm just, and people will tell me, you look so good. I didn't recognize you, or you need to update your website picture, but they've been following the journey. So they're excited about it. Content, people get so concerned and worked up about content. And I do think there's some things that can help, and we'll get into it a little bit, but don't overthink it. Honestly, I'll post something, I never watch it again because I'll criticize myself endlessly. I'll want to take it down because I think it's so bad. You'd be surprised what resonates, what does so well. One of the best videos I've had, it was during a snowstorm. I was sitting on my couch board and green screen some lipo case I did, and had 250,000 views in one day. And probably because everybody else was sitting in the snowstorm at home just watching Instagram reels or whatever. But don't overthink it. And if anyone's ever heard the kind of skateboard guy with the ocean spray stuff, he almost took his video down and never posted it because he thought he looked silly doing it. And it was probably one of the most views videos on TikTok ever. And so you just never know what's going to resonate with people. But there's some changes to the algorithm, and I'll get into that in a second, that has leveled the playing field and has made things super exciting, even if you don't have a ton of followers. So lots of opportunities. I think being able to expand your reach, we talk a lot about this, and we kind of set ourselves up in terms of things, but, really talking about some of these things, even if you don't offer medications, the Ozempic face, Ozempic butt, Ozempic breast. So I think there's a huge opportunity when you're talking about some of these wellness and really figuring out, like, in my practice right now, where does this fit? How can I just make a little tweak that fits to the things I do? If you're a med spa that really focuses on facial aesthetics, I mean, lean into that. Like, hey, this is our specialty is facial aesthetics, and so we specialize in rejuvenating. So you're losing weight, you want to protect that collagen. Here's a good skincare routine. Here's the things that you would do. And so, you can find a spot that's fabulous. If you're a body surgeon, you can be like, hey, and you don't want to do the weight loss medicine, talk about it. Like, hey, here's all the really cool things you can do non-surgically, for your abdomen, for your butt, for your back. And so, all I'm saying this slide is to take a little bit of time and think about it. Like, if you're in this weight loss world, what unique value proposition do we have in our practice that we offer now that is a unique value add for everybody who's on this journey? And I bet there's something that's super unique about your practice that you're like, this is something we do better than anybody else, for 100 square miles, and so I think that's the thing to lean into, resonate, because people already know you for that concept, and now you've just made it real to them. A lot of people have steered away from TikTok, Instagram, other stuff because they they didn't want to be dancing. And that was, if anybody's ever seen me dance, you don't want to. I have no rhythm. I have two left feet. It's horrible. But it's changed. In some of the stats here are a little bit mind blowing if you think about it. Because in the past, people used to be, if I was number one on Google, all my problems would go away. My schedule would be full forever. And some of those things have changed because the amount of people on social media. What's interesting is the amount of people, who look up and do use social media as their main search engine. And when you look at Gen Z, TikTok has actually surpassed Google as the number one search engine. So it shows you some trends there. Also, too, when you look at product delivery, I mean, social media ads have skyrocketed, and so people are doing their shopping, they're doing their searching on these areas. So many opportunities just be on Google. So no question, optimize your Google, but don't forget about TikTok, Instagram stuff as search engines. And when you're making content, think about it that way. I always tell people, at least do a check, have it, whoever helps you. Instagram is your new website. So, if somebody's like, Lloyd's absolutely fabulous, we need to you need to go see him for your breast dog, whatever it is. But to them, if they go on his Instagram and he doesn't even have a profile, he has one picture, and it's him fishing and there's nothing else about this, they're gonna, to them, he doesn't even exist, even though you got a patient referral, which we all know is priceless, right? A referral from someone that had the procedure, that's a closed deal, but you just need to at least have some presence. And this is why, even if you don't have a ton of followers, at least if you have your Instagram set up, you have your link tree, you have your address, you have your phone number, have some videos talking about who you are, what procedures you do. It just at least gives you that presence when your patients are referring, when they're looking you up, you're there. So one of the things I truly feel about, and now it's not just Instagram, it's TikTok, it's Snapchat, it's whatever you Facebook, you should have your presence out there, even if you don't have a ton of followers. So don't let not having a bunch of followers keep you from doing it. I alluded to this a little bit, this TikTok evolution, because the amount of people that have searched on this, and I don't know if a lot of people know this, why TikTok is surged so much, and it has to do with their search algorithm. And honestly, a lot of the other platforms have merged. If you've noticed, or if you follow any of the social media stuff, they all kind of get closer and closer together, right? Because whatever one of them does well, the other one's copy. And so, they had stories, they had DMs, they have search. But what was really cool about TikTok in terms of what they did, and any of you guys know this, that it used to be just a time base. When you posted something, the time it was posted, it got posted on and went. And then they kind of changed it a little bit. And so while followers still matter, now TikTok had developed a interest-based algorithm. So basically, it's looking for what you want to see. And so this is interesting because rather than just being to your followers or to having a bunch of likes and other stuff, this is where you really have to optimize how you make your post. Because if you make your post in a way that's searchable, and then somebody's looking for that specific topic, it will feed it to them. So you have a super huge opportunity like you've never had before. It's leveled the playing field in terms of, exposure. Obviously, if you have, 5 million followers, is that going to help? Sure, because it's going to get a lot of responses and engagement, which is going to trigger to say that people like this. But you still have to optimize this. There's still an opportunity, even if you don't have a lot. It was funny. I went to a concert on Saturday, and the person going, I didn't really know them very well. My girlfriend wanted to go. It was an hour and a half drive. I was like, shit, and of course, and so we go there, and the guy was fabulous. And he stops in the middle of it, and he was a really brand new artist and had this huge following. And he's like, hey, I just want to thank everybody because in 2021, I was building gas pipelines, oil pipelines, and he's like, here in Texas, it was just all you guys know about oil and so forth. I was doing pipelines. It was family had done it before me. My dad did it. My brothers did it. And so it's what I was going to do my whole life. And he's like, and then over the pandemic, nobody was driving. They laid people off. And so all of a sudden, I wasn't building pipes anymore. Nobody was driving. They didn't need gas. And so he goes, so I went on TikTok and I sang this song that I just had been playing with and kind of playing with the guitar a little bit. And to this day, he still doesn't know how to play the guitar. Had something like 5 million view stuff. 3 years later, he's has his own tour. because he had that exposure, built this following right away, and so forth. And just shows you he didn't have a ton of followers. He was building pipes, but was there, resonated with people. And now 3 years later, an entire tour based around him. I mean, that's pretty amazing how something could just trigger just like that, and went from something that was such a bad point and down point in his life to something that was such a resurgence. So I thought that was such a timely and such a inspiring story for this. Made it worth sitting in the rain listening to this concert. He was actually great. He did a great job. But super cool in terms of the education of being able to search through TikTok. And I know there's some push about whether TikTok will go away with some of the things. The issue there is you'll see a couple things. One, you're going to see a huge surge before it goes away. Two, somebody will come in and fill some of that. So still good practice, still a lot of times. And then even if it goes away, you're going to see a lot of those being pushed to other platforms such as Instagram and Snapchat. And I do think Snapchat's a secret one that still gets us a ton of views and a lot of leads. Consistency is key. I talked about this a little bit. I just do a good morning every day, whether it's at the gym, whether it's at the sink scrubbing in for the day. It just gets us started. It lets people get a feel for you and who you are, which I think is absolutely key. There's so many ways to do this. I took the slide out, but we do a vibe board or smart board that's super easy to just draw on it. It's super social media safe, so that makes it easy for you to be able to get content out there. Contextual content, I think, is huge. Know your audience. So, if we're talking about this being a search-based, interest-based algorithm, who are you trying to speak to? Because you want to speak to the audience that you're trying to drive attention to. So making sure who's your audience, who's your patients, what's your goal of the message? And I honestly hate being salesy on social media because that's not what people want to see. And if you can educate them, make them resonate with you, then do that. So make sure, and Gary Vee talks a lot about this, give, and then ask stuff. So making sure you're giving them a lot of value, something that's super interesting before you ever ask for something. So step and repeat over and over and over. We've talked a little bit about that. Trying to make an emotional attachment. Why should they come see you? Why should they follow your journey? What message are you trying to get there? Everybody on here, you're the expert in the field, and so people are getting that information somewhere. And so, educate them. You love what you do. There's something you're super passionate about. Talk about that and be unique to yourself. You don't need to be me. You don't need to be somebody else. Like in our practice, we got very vast different personalities. I'm a little bit hot-tempered and emotional and so forth. My partner who does a lot of our face rhinoplasties, they call him the professor. He's very thoughtful. He did this whole TikTok thing where he put himself in a suit and then in a white coat, and he actually filmed it himself, just talking to himself, going back and forth. And he didn't even let the MAs video him because he said it would break his concentration. And it's just it's so quirky that people love it, and it's just, but it's him, and him being me and me being him would never work. And so, I always tell people, own your own quirkiness because people love that. We talked a little bit about this. I think there's such an opportunity right now in terms of things. Only a small percentage of people see your content. Don't be afraid to repurpose it. You can do, show your content, re-show it on the weekend for highlights of the best of the week. If you have a great result that you love, you can green screen talking about what was cool about that result. You can talk about why you picked that treatment for that patient. We talked about the interest-based graphs. I mean, it just is really level the playing field in terms of number of followers, and being able to get exposure even if you don't have a huge following. I get a lot of questions about whether the skinny shot itself or semaglutide, GLP, tirzepatide, whatever, is the end of aesthetics. And I honestly think that it's an opportunity. I think there's a second wave. I do think it's going to change how we view aesthetics. I think it's going to change some of the procedures. I think it's going to change some of the treatment processes. I think it's going to change some of the timelines for patients. But I still think that there's so many opportunities, and I think things that are going to continue to explode. I do think that practices that can speak to this population are going to have a huge opportunity. I also think that there's a opportunity in terms of a patient base that nobody owns right now, right? Like nobody in most cities, there's nobody that's like the Ozempic face expert or the Ozempic butt expert per se. While somebody may be a BBL person, patients see it differently. And I do think there are some different needs. This is interesting to kind of circle back to it. So you have so now you've generated all these new patients coming in. 70% of those patients that come into your office return for another service. such a huge opportunity. So now you've driven them in and now you're doing other things, because now I'll tell you from personal experience, losing this weight, I'm super excited. I feel good about it, And so before I lost my weight, I had done some toxin, but now I'll let you in my beauty secrets. I've had jawline filler. I've had some skinny Sculptra. I'm thinking about getting my neck done. I've had a couple treatments of soft wave, RF microneedling, you name an energy device. I'm doing it to, tighten and shrinking, everything. So, just because you feel so great, and now you're like, yeah, let's do it. I'm excited about shopping again. So definitely some pivots. I talked at the beginning about this a little bit. I do think it's a unique patient population, and I think I gave this message a little bit earlier, but I feel even stronger about it now. It's a very different population than most of us have dealt with in the past, with the massive weight loss patients from surgery. Because with bariatric surgery, they're older patients. They're patients with multiple comorbidities. These are young patients that look absolutely fabulous. They got good skin. They're super responsive to energy. There's lots of things and lots of options. These patients are honestly super fun. So lots of cool things that you can do with this. I do think there's some evolving trends in this, and skin laxity has been an issue. This is someone who we'd seen a year ago, from out of state, came in, was coming for a BBL, lost 100 pounds, now had nothing. So it's, making sure when you have your practice, what are you going to do with these patients as they switch? Now they've lost 100 pounds. What's your plan B? And how are you going to speak to these patients to do things? Because now there's new treatment issues, and maybe what was your number one procedure has kind of evolved into some of these things. We've even changed kind of some of our ideas, and I'm a big lipo BBL person. Stuff is kind of my thing. And so, back in the day, it was just how many and how much vacuum or how much volume could you put. It was the part of every conference stuff. Now it's all about this shape and form and function. We call it Pilates bodies. And so, something that's super fit, not over the top, but into a great spot. And again, when you're speaking to these patients, finding something that really resonates with them, because a lot of them are on these fitness wellness journeys. So I think something that's interesting in terms of changing this, as we think about some of this pivotal time in plastic surgery, it's like, how are you going to treat skin laxity in your office? How are you going to treat some of these things that are always challenging? Neck, arms, inner thighs, legs, butts, because those are ones where I would say in general, there's still a limit to surgical options. I feel like breast, we do a pretty good job of surgery. Tummies, we do a pretty good job. Legs are challenging. Arms are challenging because not everybody wants those scars, especially really young patients. So I think there's opportunities for a lot of the people on listening right now to really kind of carve a path forward on how we treat and what we do for these patients in a meaningful way. I do think there's kind of a survive or thrive, because I think there is going to be a little bit of a divide over the next 6 to 9 months. Who knows, in terms of some of the economic changes stuff, but I also think it's some of the patient desires and needs. And so I really think if you can speak to patients, if you can kind of work through some of these challenges, then there's unique opportunities, because those patients are looking and they're searching. And if you're someone that's like, hey, here's our treatment algorithm. If you have Ozempic base, here are the 20/30s, here's the energy devices, here's the things that we do to get you to a great spot. It's part of our whole process in terms of helping you live your fit and fabulous life. Because of this unique opportunity of a patient population that nobody owns, it's leveled the playing field. Even if you're a new practice versus a practice that's been there forever, because somebody may be like, oh, they're the breast dog person, and again, but I'm the Ozempic breast person. You've lost weight. I specialize, with doing some, highly cohesive gels, some fat transfer, some whatever it is that you think is the best treatment for that. And that's really something that you can lean into. So I think really cool opportunity, especially for even some of the med spas that are out there, who really specialize and have done a lot of like combination treatments in terms of biostimulants, combining it with RF microneedling, and those type of treatment algorithms, and really explaining like, hey, this is why I do it. This is the benefit I think you're getting. This is why this is unique. And again, now you're changing it from just being, the 800th practice in Austin that offers RF microneedling to, some person who specializes in Ozempic face. But this is key, and this was a hard learning curve for us, is really speaking in a way that resonates with them, because the last thing that somebody wants to hear when they've lost 80-90 pounds is, oh yeah, we do a ton of filler, we'll fill your face back up. And you're like, no, look, I don't want to fill my face back up. I've worked the last year and a half to not be full of my face. I had a round face. And so even just changing little things like structural support, stuff like that. We even Sculptra, we call skinny Sculptra for our weight loss patients. So we're building collagen, we're not trying to refill them. And so and it is thoughtful in terms of what we're trying to treat from a goals, but also a way that makes sense to them. And so I think there's some little language stuff that can go a long, long way for the patients and your practice ultimately. Definitely a competitive world and result stuff. So, one of the really cool things is if you can take these patients along the entire journey, now you show like, hey, here's where somebody came, they went through our whole process, weight loss, skin tightening, so forth, and showing that transformation. I mean, those are super powerful for patients because people can see the light at the end of the tunnel of where they start and like, hey, I started there and I can get here. I think that's super exciting. That's something that creates an emotional attachment. We all want to see our twin on there, and so I fortunately have a twin, but that's a story for another day. This has been kind of the evolution of our practice over this time. Like I told you, we have our three pillars. We're actually about to add a fourth, which is our research arm, because some of the stuff I'm so excited about. But our weight loss, our wellness optimization with the peptides, hormones, our surgery, and then our med spa, and really a lot of our med spa is just focused on kind of the whole Ozempic face, butt, breast, body stuff, because I think especially in the lower extremity, there's a lot of options and untapped resource with a lot more needs than you're ever going to see, because you're going to see really young people with legs and butt that they don't love that probably aren't good surgery candidates yet. So beyond the weight loss, because this is what, kind of the next step in evolution and what we've done in our practice stuff is really controlling that whole journey. So getting them to an ideal weight before their surgery, maximizing their health, whether that's with peptides, hormones, labs, nutrition. That way it's like start to finish, but really be beyond, because there's no real finish point. There's a lot of steps in the middle that are going to get them to a great spot. And so I want to hit on a couple of these before I run out of time here. And so, even in our practice, we created this whole muscle mass movement. This is something that I love, been super happy about, because you hear so much about muscle loss, and this can be either when they're starting the weight loss or when they've kind of got towards the end and they're in a maintenance phase. So incorporating some Orlin, which is a peptide that actually comes nasal spray or injectable. We use Pure Impact and M-Sculpt, but whatever E-stem you have that makes sense. Hormones. So there's a chance if you offer hormones or wellness stuff, doing some of the labs, making sure that's in a great spot for them. There's also some new medications out there that actually stimulate your own testosterone, such as enclomiphene. So there's a lot of options in there. So number one, you're taking something that may be an obstruction for them to start their weight loss, and you're actually making it something that you treat and help them in that journey. So, something catchy, something that we've added that I think's been huge. Peptides and supplements. I'll tell you, and maybe a talk for another day where we just focus on peptides and supplements, because it's definitely a hot topic. I think it's a little bit more complicated. Jeff's probably navigated a lot of this hardness stuff things. There was a lot of medications out there, probably about 6 months ago or so. The FDA updated some of their lists, so a lot of medications got taken off. Some could be brought back on a supplement list because they were orals and not injectables, and so it's definitely something that there's a lot of good opportunities out there. I do think you got to do a little research, spend some time, make sure that you're in a good spot, that you're not putting people in a bad spot, you're not putting your practice in a bad spot, but definitely patients are asking for these. So I think being educated about it, I think there are some really, really cool things that help people along these journeys. And then we've even broken these into like focus buckets and a couple things to help patients, to help our practice, to help our staff into these, so you can customize treatment plans. So weight loss, muscle movement, pre-procedures, like people that are trying to prepare for surgery, and this way you can have kind of your supplements, your peptides, whatever you want to do to get people to a good spot with things. And I think organizing this and is as helpful for our office staff as it is for patients, because it's easy with lots of things to get lost into the weed stuff. So, pre-procedure peptides, again, a catchy name, but just ways for us to be like, hey, you're on your weight loss, we're going to pull you off the GLPs, ahead of time, make sure you're in a good weight, but here's some of the things you can do to optimize your health stuff. And now that they're so on top of it, a lot of them are asking for it. And again, just like most of you offer, supplements, arnica, bromelain stuff in your office, if you're not dictating or at least giving them a list of like, here's the things I think that truly help you, they end up going somewhere else and getting stuff that shouldn't be doing, stuff that you end up being, we got cancer your surgery because you're taking stuff you shouldn't be. And so, at least guiding them like, hey, don't take this. These are the stuff if you want to do something that's going to make a real difference for you. So I think it's been helpful for us, because with so many of the weight loss, so many of them into it, if we don't guide them a little bit, they just go on their own. And that's been troublesome, at least. This is something I'm super, super excited about. It's called Shape Scale, and there's a few other coming to the market soon, but basically does these because we call it the weight loss revolution, but it's really been this whole like body composition stuff. And especially as people get further along, now, if you're talking about muscle mass movement, if you're talking about hormones, if you're talking about the journey, the idea behind this is that it actually does your weight, but it does a full body composition, and you can track these. You can actually pull this into your system. It measures their changes every time. It tells you from like an age, a height, everything where you are, based for your weight stuff, what kind of changes you've made at every visit. Because a lot of times, as people get further along, they may not see, the big changes in the scale, but then when they see that their body composition has changed, or if they say like, oh, I really haven't made these muscle gains, it's like, okay, well, let's, again, if they thought you maybe to redo labs at this point or do something like, hey, let's check some of the things that are keeping you from making the gains you want. And so I think it gives people a more educated point in where they're at, and lets you make better decisions for them. So something that we've integrated in our office about a month ago. And so we've been tracking people. So super excited. I'll give you guys an update probably in about 6 months as we've been able to follow those people for a long period of time, but something at least for you guys to know about that's been super exciting, super well received by patients. This is something I've done personally, and we're actually launching it in our office. And again, another way to kind of biohack people in terms of really guiding them. And so it's called Lumen, but it's basically tracks your metabolic output. So you can blow on it throughout the day. You actually can tell whether you're burning fats, carbs. It gives you recommendations in terms of timing, whether you're fasting too long, not fasting enough, eating too late, need to change some of your times. But again, a way that if you've had patients that have stalled out, patients that are struggling, rather than just giving them these general ideas, you can actually see from an individual person exactly what changes they can make, where they're at. I'll tell you, some of the things were surprising, and just doing it for even a couple of weeks, once I was into it, I kind of realized where I was making a few little mistakes, and when I was burning more carbs than fat and so forth like this. And so was super cool to be able to make a few little tweaks, not even in the amount I was eating, but the times I was eating, and made some gains in terms of overall fitness stuff. So pretty cool when you can bring some of these things that truly dictate your health stuff. And again, trying to give you guys ideas of the future with all this AI, the technology, the things out there, that make a difference. And again, can make your practice stand out to just the online stuff of whatever, in terms of weight loss things. I think at-home labs, this is something I'm super excited about, and we've launched this at our office, because for a lot of people want labs, but are you going to send them to a lab corp? Do you have people in your office that are going to draw labs? Which some people do, some people don't, depending on the size of your office, the amount of staff. For us, we have nurses, but sometimes we don't want to take up rooms to do it. Also, if you do a lot of virtual consultations, then are you going to bring them in? Are you going to send them somewhere? Again, just a delay. Most of us, it's the lack of movement stuff. If it's easy, we're going to do it. If it's hard, we're not. So the idea that you can have this shipped straight to their house, you could even do it before their visit, so you ship it to them ahead of time. But you actually do a little pinprick, put it on a piece of paper, drop it in a prepaid envelope stuff. And 5 days later, you get all your lab results. It comes to your own portal. So for your office, you can actually track this. The nice thing is, you can do it if you're just doing the weight loss. You can have your baseline. If you do hormones, other stuff, things, you can track them periodically. So yeah. Again, just how do you make this easy? How do you make this streamlined? Because that's a barrier to entry for people. So this is one that I'm super excited. And the thing about all three of these is that they're so cost effective. I mean, and sort of like if you think about your TVs, used to, if you want to buy a 50-inch TV and you go back about 5-7 years ago, it was $10,000. Now you see the ads for them for like, $400, if probably even not even that. Some of these, like the Lumen, you can get for about $300. The Home Labs, some of these, depending on what you get, the boxes kits actually cost you about $120. So super reasonable, especially if you're compared to going to like a CPL and getting a full lab panel stuff. You're gonna pay about that anyway, if not more, depending on your situation. I've touched on this before, but I just want to make sure, if you have all these things going on, if you're integrating these into your practice, make sure you have a treatment plan. I'll tell you, when we did this in our office, it helped the staff as much as it helped the patients, because it helped organize the thoughts. And while you may be like, yep, I treat Ozempic face, someone's gonna call, oh, do you treat Ozempic face? And be like, oh, we don't offer Ozempic in our office. And so, it's just such a lost opportunity. The other nugget I want to leave you, and I only got 2 or 3 slides left, but is that we developed this thing called cross conversion, just giving and that's where we convert people from one pill to the other, from wellness to surgery, surgery to wellness, whatever. Giving it a name and tracking it every month. And I know the Clarity people will beat this down into you. you don't know what you don't measure. And so just measuring it alone and giving it a name, in 30 days, we doubled our conversion rate. And we weren't tracking it, so then it wasn't important to people, wasn't important to the admins, wasn't important to the staff. It didn't have a name, so it didn't really exist. It was like, oh, you can get a complimentary consultation with the esthetician. They're like, why? What am I gonna do? And so like it didn't mean anything to them. When it's like, hey, you get 25 units of Botox, when you reach your goal weight and you've accomplished this 6-month goal we set for yourself, like now there's a reason, there's a reward, they're excited about it. They tie that visit with the esthetician as something super positive, as a goal, as a reward, and then now they're in front of somebody or whatever you're doing. But you get the idea. And so I think measuring it, converting, being super purposeful about it was huge for us. I also love this, if you have your email list, you have so many patients in your own. So if you're bringing this on, data mine your own patients, because a lot of those patients are getting stuff somewhere. They'd rather get it from you because they trust you already. So that's easy. I also think coming up with, we call it our Skinny Shot Squad, but if you're doing the weight loss and you want to grow your med spa, think about very specific campaigns. Ozempic butt, what can you do that resonates specifically for them? Like, I don't mind doing discounts or specials for the people that are most loyal to me. If you're someone that comes and sees our office every month and spends money every month with us, I'm happy to give you a discount because you're the one that's taking care of us every month. And so I think speaking to those patients is huge in a way that really resonates them, that's super specific. Last thing is, I always like to leave people with a few little nuggets for giving up your valuable time. So these are some of my favorite AI apps, toys, social toy stuff. ChatGPT, I'll tell you, in the mornings when I'm trying to write blogs, do other stuff, I'll just dictate it into Google Docs. My team just pulls it up on our Google Doc. If I look and see if I dictate anything, they'll put in ChatGPT, clean it up for me, and that way it's done and set. So that's super easy. So that's a way to do a whole blog in 10 minutes, and they just pull it up, clean it up, super easy. Also, if you're just kind of got some brain fog stuck, type some ideas. It'll give you a few things. That's super easy. CapCut I love. Plus, it's got this little dog in the green here to just make stuff super fun. But it's a way to repurpose your content, and so you can turn a still picture into a really cool video. If you're trying to add some of the cool colored captions, make stuff so easy. OPS Pro, that's one that people don't think about. And so if you do any long form stuff, horizontal, if you have a podcast, if you have a YouTube, you can actually takes all the work out of this. You upload it on there. It'll turn it into any social media platform that you want, Instagram, TikTok, formats it, puts the captions. It takes out in the most kind of engaging portions of it based on like voices and so forth like that. Gives you a bunch of choices, you pick it. So it basically lets you repurpose your content. Super easy, takes all the hard work out. Absolutely love it. Again, super affordable. Canva, that's actually what I did this presentation on. I think it makes PowerPoint so much easier. The nice thing is it's all in the cloud stuff. So if you have somebody that's helping you with everything, the nice thing is you can all work together. I'm doing a presentation with 4 other people for ASAPs, for ASPS. And so we just been doing it on Canva because everybody can add their slides. All the slides look together. I know what they're putting, so we're not duplicating the same thing and giving the same talk 4 times. So I've loved it. I have WhatsApp here, but it really can be anything. Make sure that somebody is checking your DMs, whether it's Instagram, now TikTok, WhatsApp, Facebook. Patients are DMing you. To them, that's the same as calling the office. If you're not responding to direct messages, you are missing out. So we have actually tied to our CRM, huge, super important. Make sure somebody's responding to those, because missed opportunities if you're not. And to patients, they've reached out to your office. They filled your online form because they sent you a DM. So you must have gotten it. But that's it, everyone. So hopefully that was super helpful. I think the wellness wave is a real thing. I think skin laxity is going to be a huge issue. And so finding ways to really kind of create some leak magnets and stuff into that. And thank you guys. Appreciate everybody's time.
Johnny, you're always so awesome. Like, you just blew through a whole hour. I don't know how you do it. Did you take a breath? Awesome. We only had a few questions, Johnny, and I'm going to go ahead and start with one. And then Jill, I definitely will get to yours because I think it's very important. But and I know you didn't say much about it, but we have people that are asking, do you have a program that practices can learn about? So I know that I know you're very respectful and make this like a CME, but go ahead, share about your Skinny Shot program for practices.
Yeah, we have a program called Scaling Skinny, but it basically we share everything that we have in here. So kind of our treatment protocols, how we get people started, even integrates all the new peptides, basically, integrates everybody. 'Cause a lot of people, the question is like, where do I even start? So I want to do these, what partners do I use for supplements, for weight loss, and then what treatment protocols, kind of, all these different sheets. While they're not super hard, it's sometimes hard depending on the amount of staff that you have to make the treatment protocols and plans and so forth. So yep, and I'll share all the information with Lindsay and Christy, so can send that out. But we have a whole kind of website platform that helps, and then we've actually built in a bunch of kind of onboarding calls, training sessions, if you will, because some of the things that we have found more helpful is to do an initial onboarding, get everybody access to the platform, and then do serial calls and sets with it over the next 6 months. Because like most things, you have more questions once you get started than you do getting started, because the longer you're in it, I feel like the more kind of subtle and arts and little road bumps you run along the way. So no, super excited about it, and definitely been a passion project of mine.
Johnny, I do have a question. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but do you still give our Clarity members a discount? I know you have for quite a while. Okay, excellent. So if you guys are interested, please reach out to us. We will make the introduction and make sure that you guys get your discount with Johnny and his team if you're interested in learning about the program. I do have a very important question because this comes up a lot. And Johnny, I know you and I have talked about this. So many people are just like, we're going to bring this weight loss, semaglutide and tirzepatide into our practice, and then they don't do anything else. They don't do any nutrition. They don't talk about the exercise. They don't talk about protein, because you can end up with deficiencies. So Jill has asked, with your wellness workup, do you discuss lifestyle modifications? Do you screen for bad habits that will impact the patient weight loss goals and expectations? And I know you're passionate about this, so please share with Jill.
I think I'll do it's a couple of things. And when people reach out to us about the program, one, and if you don't mind, I'll even take one step in front of that. If you're bringing this on, I want you to be realistic about what it is and what you're going to do and the time that you want to spend on this. Okay. So like anything you do in your practice, the amount of time and effort is what you're going to get out of it. If you're like, hey, I want to bring this weight loss program into my office because I'm a surgeon, I just have some patients that have high BMIs, that's my focus, that's where I want to start. Okay, I get that. That's great stuff. If you're trying to scale this to generate, 500 new patients in an office, right now it's going to be hard. And so, I think it's still doable. I think you really need to put the time in it. So I want to be super, super clear about that. And I think there are some really good paths to do that in terms of some of these marketing tools, but want to be real about, hey, like if you're gonna do it, let's have a game plan. And when we talk about some of these onboardings, it's like, what's your niche? How are we gonna do it? How are we gonna go in that? And I think that part of growing that is some of the stuff you're talking about, Chrissy, because I do think just offering the medication isn't enough unless you're just going to try and cut your margins so tight, that's all you're offering. But then again, you're only getting patients that are just price shopping, and you're always going to be, leveraged by whoever's offering the cheapest stuff. Just like, you guys talk about just trying to be the cheapest Botox in town typically isn't a good path forward for your practice long term.
Yeah.
A lot of times not even short term, but no question, the nutrition, that's where I think some of these things like the shape scale, the lumen, being able to do some of these home lab stuff, because it gives you a bigger picture. It actually gives them some onus and responsibility about this, because, even with the lumen, which is, I love, because you can actually see their data over the time. And if you sit up through your practice, you can actually see that over time and be like, hey, look, I know you're taking these medications, you haven't lost anything. When I look at this, you're still just burning all carbs, which means that like our diet's not as great as we think it is. And a lot of times, I don't think people are straight up lying to you about what they're eating or doing. I think sometimes we just have a little bit misconception, and most of us forget about that, venti vanilla latte that we had at 3 o'clock, or that, extra scoop of ice cream that you gave the kids and maybe also gave yourself a cup full as well, before bed. And so we're all victims to it. My girlfriend brings her kids over. I feel like I definitely put on weight the weeks that they've stayed at my place stop. And so no question. I think also setting realistic goals for them when we start their first consultation. We set a goal weighted where they want them to be. I think we pull more people off or switch them to a maintenance dose than they do, because sometimes they can blow past us. And the goal is not to get them, as skinny as humanly possible. We want to get them to an ideal weight where they're healthy, they're fit, and they're set. And so, making sure that we're also still being good providers to be safe and in a good spot with that. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yes, yep, absolutely, 100%. I think actually, as we went through the presentation and you sharing a lot of that, it did answer a lot of those questions. And there's one more to that though. And this is a question I think that's always been really prominent in plastic surgery and medical spas, especially when we're trying to weed out body dysmorphic disorder and now possibly anorexia and things like that related to people wanting to be super skinny. Do you do anything as far as psychological background checks? I know that's kind of a touchy subject, especially, when from a legal standpoint as well, like, especially with body dysmorphic disorder, we have to kind of hide things within the patient questionnaires and whatnot. What do you do with that, Johnny?
Yeah, and this is where I think setting a realistic goal, just like any of the procedures we do, if they can't set a realistic goal and we can't come to kind of a compromise, like, hey, this is an ideal weight for you, this is where our goal, this is where we're coming. If I'm like, hey, I think ideal for you, and this is where we should target is, 175 pounds, they're like, no, I want to get down to 120. Already you see some red flags coming. So I think just like we do with our skin tightening and so forth, if somebody's like, I want to do one treatment of RF and I want to be like this, you're like, well, this isn't the treatment for you. So I think a lot of that weeds itself out with a lot of the stuff that the providers do now in terms of setting expectations and so forth. And I would say that setting that goal ahead of time definitely makes that conversation much easier down the road. And that's one of the things that we have found for sure, because then it's very easy to say, hey, remember when we started this, we said this is where we want to get. We're here, so let's really talk about what your goal is, because you're at a good weight. What are you trying to achieve? And then it lets you kind of pivot to some of the other things in the office stuff. But I think it makes that conversation much easier than kind of just a moving goalpost.
Yeah, 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 definitely. I mean, it's marketing 101. You set an expectation right at the beginning and you meet those expectations, you're going to have happy patients. So very, very good. I don't have any more questions in the chat, so we're going to open it up. If anybody has any questions for Johnny, please feel free to unmute. We do this, instead of doing this as a webinar, we specifically do it as a meeting on Zoom, because we like the after hours. It's supposed to be informal. It's supposed to be a conversation. So please join and ask the questions if you have any.
I've got a question.
Sure, Jeff, go ahead.
What's your setup with your patients? Are you charging them a monthly membership fee, or is it based on a program, or you have 1,800 patients coming in? So what are you charging?
Yeah, so we have a couple options depending on their specific situation stuff. So we do have like a longer, month program. So if it's cheaper the longer they sign up. We have like a month, 3 months, 6 months if they're just doing the weight loss. We have a different price, obviously, for semaglutide and tirzepatide. If they're part of our overall like biohacking program, then we charge a membership fee, and that's the monthly membership fee. Then they get a credit towards their wellness, but they also get the rest of their kind of wellness medication stuff, whether they're on hormones, discount towards their labs, peptide supplements, those type of things. Again, the goal with the membership and the wellness for us is that, like, we're trying to make the majority of what we need to make per patient visit stuff from the membership, and then make the rest of the product super reasonable so that we can really just prescribe what they need. And the goal is to have them be there every month. So a couple different little program stuff, and I can definitely outline some of that stuff and send Christy a few nuggets, because it'll make more sense if I put a few bullet points together.
All right, very good. Jeff, did that answer your question?
Yeah. One other question. Are the majority of your patients that are coming in getting the skinny shot, they coming in, or are they doing it at home? What are you seeing the preference?
It's a little bit of a mix. So right now about 40% do mostly virtual visit stuff, and then about 60% come into the office. And some of it, I'm in Texas, and so it's just for a lot of people, some of it's logistics. If it's an hour and a half commute each way stuff and so forth. That's why I'm super excited about the home labs, to be able to like ship it to them ahead of time, be able to do all those things. I mean, really decreases that barrier to them, especially if you're rolling into offering testosterone, some of the other peptides, other things like that.
Right. And like I said, Johnny, I'll connect you with Jeff after this.
Okay.
With text, that you guys can talk about, Jeff, your manufactured semaglutide. I was really fascinated to learn about that. So that'd be, but I think the two of you need to talk for sure.
I think some of those things are super interesting in terms of this is, so, one, making ease of access. I'll tell you, we still do a ton of virtuals in this day and age stuff, both for our wellness, our weight loss, our surgery stuff, because for a lot of people, on demand is so easy for them. And another way to make barriers of entry, to make connections, to be able to see a lot of patients in a good spot. The positive feedback we've gotten from even some of the follow-ups and so forth, I think has been great. So even our patients that sign up for a 6-month, or they're on a maintenance thing, and so they're doing a 3-month dose stuff, we'll still do a 10-minute check-in once a month. That's super easy for them, but also keeps them engaged in the practice. So I think that's huge, and another kind of a good value add. The other thing I would say is a kind of learning curve take home for people that are doing any of the wellness, weight loss stuff things, is whether it's the hormones, the weight loss drug stuff, just making sure that the office really understands. I mean, all of these are prescriptions, all of these are real medications, and that they're taking it seriously. Because sometimes I think, people think, oh, it's just weight loss, and whether it's semaglutide or phentermine or anything, all these things have real side effects and real problems if they're not done correctly. And so I think having a very good check system of prescription stuff being sent with whatever compound or pharmacy partner that you have in terms of things, just like you would any other medication that you're sending in. I think that's super important.
Right. Very good. Okay. Is there any other questions? You guys have an opportunity, and again, Robbie, do you have one? Are you waving?
I don't have a question, but I just want to take this opportunity to invite anyone here that is a member to join me tomorrow at 3:00. So as my strength and my passion really is new practice development.
Welcome.
And so because in the last really 3 years, and Johnny, so first of all, amazing presentation. It is so nice to meet you. I have not had the opportunity, but I love this. I'm so passionate about longevity, peptides, biohacking, and all that stuff. And I'm passionate about aesthetics and medicine and all the things that I've been doing for all these years. But from a new practice development or practice extension in the last 3 years, and peptides, as you know, this isn't new. None of this is new. We've been in Europe, it's been doing it forever. But I've had to really dig in and understand how we make money doing this, because over 30% of our new developments now want some form of I'm using longevity in a big umbrella term. And I love that you break down your wellness, your surgery, your med spa, because it's serious medicine. And so it all kind of starts. Anyway, it's kind of fun. I love it. I just got back from the Peptide World Conference 3 weeks ago.
Cool.
Yep, I went to Vegas, and it's fascinating. And from the hyperbaric to the infrared to the whole big thing. So tomorrow I'm going to be doing a community call at 3. And for those of you who are interested, it's really going to be more from the perspective of adding this to the practice. What is the growth opportunity? What are we seeing in terms of, opportunity? One of the things I learned at the peptide conference through Dr. Seed's SSRP is that their fastest growing vertical in peptides and biohacking is the aesthetic market. So you're absolutely right. We are primed to add this to our menu of really, we're doing our patients a service. I mean, we are sitting in the perfect place for these patients. So
And patients are asking about it. And the problem is, if they don't get it from us, they're going to get it from some online service, from someone that may or may not be legitimate. And
yes.
Jennifer knows this. There's so many bad actors out there right now, and that's what makes it hard for providers is that, are you getting a legitimate product that you're offering it? And I do, just because we have so many and we have such a good relationship with Bird and Diodato stuff, I've written letters and done stuff because trying to protect physicians, because they've had issues where compound pharmacies weren't doing right things, or these pharmacy stuff, and then the physician or the provider gets blamed for it, and so asking the right questions to screen and do those things.
And then things like adding the Samorlins and adding, all of that to then to complement, and the biohacking. It's fascinating, and it's a huge you're gonna see so much more of this, just based on my exposure in the last 3 years to you know, what we're seeing with new developments. So anyway, it's exciting. Thank you so much, because it's the perfect segue for me tomorrow. Any of you who are available at noon PST, 3 EST, you'll get to hear me talk about it from more of a development standpoint and why it's important to pay attention to this.
Yeah, yeah, Robbie, and just so you know, Lindsay did post it in the chat, and
Yep.
it is though for our members. So I do see a lot of members on here, but I also see some names that we don't have. So this is one of the benefits of being a Clarity member, besides many, many, many more. But we do have regular community calls where we are bringing special guests like Johnny, Robbie, you know, bringing people in to talk about these topics with experts, you know, with leading KOL experts. And so, so Robbie, we have, Lindsay did plug you. She plugged you earlier for sure.
So it was great and super fabulous. I thoroughly enjoyed everything, and I learned lots of things too. So
yeah, I'll get this recording to you, Robbie, so you can share it with Rand for sure.
perfect. Thank you.
Of course, of course. All right.
I did
Chris?
get one more. I did get one more question
Sure.
in private to me, and it says, "Are you able to share which compounding pharmacies you work with regularly?" Dr. Franco, are you able to share kind of your experience with compound pharmacies? And then, of course, we don't typically recommend. We have some ways that we help you vet out some pharmacies. But Dr. Franco, if you'd like to share your experience, I think that would be great.
Yeah, I happy to share, though it's a little bit more complicated because it depends on what state you're in, and not
Yes.
every pharmacy
Mhm.
has licenses in every state stuff. So that's a little something. So definitely happy to answer that. And if somebody wants to email me, I'm happy to connect them with their states of which pharmacies we do. A couple of the big ones that we do that do a lot of stuff is Innovation Revelation does a lot of things through a lot of states. So that's one of our big partners. They cover a lot of states, but I'm not going to say every state.
Yeah.
And then some of it's just a state dependent. A few states have a few compounds, some have a lot. I will tell you a couple of things that you really should do to stay out of trouble. And Christy, maybe I'll send you that list, because if nothing else, everyone should have that you can email to them afterwards. But being able to get a certification of analysis, a potency, there's a few things you should ask from your compound pharmacies, and if they can't provide those, then they're probably not a good partner.
Yep, 100%. Yep. Yeah. And we actually brought on, based on your recommendation, Johnny, and this was in 2023. So Lindsay, we might need to reach back out, but we did have Innovation Revelation actually do a talk, and it's still, the recording is still accessible in the Clarity Practice Performance platform. So, you know, that is something, but yeah, Johnny, if you don't mind sharing that, and we'll make sure that Jasmine and Randy get that as well for the people that are not members. And so we can get that over to them. That would be great.
And then that protects you from some of the medical board issues that we've helped Bernie Adato's team, because if you've asked for those things and they've sent them to you, you know, then their statement is you've done your due diligence to like making sure to the best of your knowledge, because nobody expects you to be a pharmacist, you know, if you're the provider, but at least you've done your due diligence, like, hey, show me, you know, your certificate, show me your analysis, X, Y, and Z. So that way you have that, and you should ask for it periodically.
Yep. Yeah, and on that, just because, and if you guys don't mind, I know Jeff that you're a guest, but am I putting you on the spot by saying, I know that you again now have semaglutide available through your group purchasing organization, and it's a manufactured version. Is it a 503A? How, again, just what you're offering?
What we have set up is the manufacturer does have a 503B distribution license, but we have a distribution partner that's a 503A. So we can do both bulk as well as individual. You can script from your EMR or through an online portal. You can have the product sent to your clinic or sent to the patient's home. It's up to the provider the way they want to do it.
Is it in every state, Jeff?
Yeah, we have coverage in every single state. We are cleared in the state of California. A lot of people don't realize that out of state pharmacies are banned for semaglutide and tirzepatide compounding pharmacies that are not in the state of California to serve California practices or patients. We're approved because it's manufactured. It's not compounded. The only state that we don't operate in is West Virginia. There's some quirky rules and regs there. We have 3,500 practices and med spas in the buying network, and I think we have less than 20 in West Virginia. So we've kind of just ignored that because we don't have a lot of activity out of that state.
Got it. Okay, wonderful.
And this is what I'm saying. It's so, and Jeff knows this so well. There's some quirky things in different states, and it is just, yeah, and
Well,
definitely.
Dr. Franco, one of the things that we're going to put a webinar together on it is these med mal carriers like TDC, Pro Assurance, all this. With this stuff that's going on right now, when that patient becomes a plaintiff, these guys are running. They are not covering the case because you didn't test your patient before. And then if you're a California doc and you're sneaking your product from Las Vegas or someplace, the first question they're going to ask you is, have you ever used a banned substance with your patients? Well, you have to say yes. So you have to be careful with the regulations, with the state by state laws, and then these carriers, professional liability, they have a bunch of rules too. A lot of folks are not following good medical protocol with their weight management patients. And this is the first time that a lot of these med spas are dealing with patients that have comorbidity. We've always had healthy, happy patients. Now you've got a patient that's coming in that might be obese, have type 2 diabetes, have some heart issues, and you're not going to give them a test for anything, even just a regular panel. And then something winds up happening, then that patient becomes a plaintiff.
Jeff, you hit a couple points that I think are super important. One, if you're starting this, and if you've already started and you haven't reached out to your malpractice care, you should, and make sure you get in writing that, hey, I'm offering this. What else do I need to do to expand my coverage? Make sure in writing they say that, yes, you're covered for this, or hey, here's the extra fee for you to be covered, but so that you have something in writing saying that they're covering you and that you've acknowledged, you've notified them that you're offering this, so that they can't turn around and say this wasn't it and we didn't know that you were offering it. So Jeff's 100% on that. Two, whoever you're, and again, I don't get paid by them. I don't care who you use. Verdia is who I use, so that's why I keep bringing them up. But run through it. Hey, here's my protocol with them. Am I doing anything? Am I missing any trap stuff here? Just like you would if you were starting, a med spa, something, you would go through all your protocols. You would make sure you have your consents, for all of these treatments, these medications, just like you would any other procedure. So 100%, Jeff couldn't be more right. I mean,
well, we know this. We were just told last week, there's the big five carriers. There is one of them that will not cover this if it's a compounded product from a pharmacy, and they are not notifying their practitioners. So when this just happens, you're out of luck. And we were a little bit surprised by that. It's one of the big boys, one of the big names out there, and there's going to be more following because, like I said, you're not getting healthy, happy patients anymore. You're getting patients that some of them are at crisis. You are saving lives now. You're not saving wrinkles. You are saving lives. You are preventing someone from having a heart attack next year.
Yep.
That God had deemed was going to have a heart attack next year. Those patients, as good as that sounds, some of those patients are going to have issues, and you just have to cover your bases.
100%. Yep. Absolutely. So I think that, Lindsay, let's make sure that if we can, I think we should, I know that we already have started talking to Bernardo about coming back out to do a follow-up. We'll definitely do that. And Jasmine, I know you have a question for Johnny, so go ahead, love.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure that we asked for some folks that may feel a little bit overwhelmed. Such a great presentation as always. We love having it. But first, for one of those practices that may not know, okay, should I get this whole program? Should I do everything? Is there like a little hack to say, maybe this is like the little A and B, so a few things that you can start out with, see how it works, incorporate the next phase. Do you have it broken down into phases, essentially?
Yep, definitely can do phases. And so, and like I said, I'm definitely happy to jump on an intro call with somebody and even make sure it's a good fit for them stuff, because some people have already got some of them in their practice. Honestly, we've had a few calls with people that once we kind of go over some of the stuff that Jeff's brought up, they're like, hey, look, I'm not that interested in. I was going to treat 2 or 3 people in my patients. It's not worth, implementing all this stuff into the office. So just like any treatment, you want to make sure it's a good fit for the practice to bring on. 100%. I think, and this is where I was talking earlier. I think if you're going to bring it in, starting with your own patient base is the easiest stuff, because then you are treating some of these healthy patients. You are keeping it to the patients you've already had before you start treating the complex. I'll tell you, when we started out, before we brought in internal medicine, if you had a comorbidity, if you were diabetic, those things, we sent you back to the internal medicine. We sent you, and this is where, again, starting simple and being in a good wheelhouse before you start getting cavalier and offering this to just everybody. And honestly, if somebody's already seen an endocrinologist, even though we have an internal medicine doctor, our doc will tell them, like, hey, unless you're transferring all your care to me, you need to go back to your endocrinologist. You need to go back to where I was managing your diabetes. Because again, it's just good medicine.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are getting so excited just with, oh, this is another area that we can tap into and really get robust revenue, right? So how do we determine really how aggressive we should go about incorporating that into a practice that may not be doing bad thing?
I definitely think unless you're, we help Brad with some of this, Calabrese, who has a well-oiled machine, med spa stuff, and probably most people know him. Like, for him, it was easy to kind of ramp up and go big pretty fast, but he obviously has a massive, freight train machine and so forth. But if you're bringing this in, I tell everybody, start slow, because if you don't take the time to get your consents, to get all these things set right, you are going to have a lot of heartache on the backside. And then going back, it is going to cost you, like most things in life, a lot more money to go back and fix it than to spend the time to do it right. So I'm telling people, if you haven't started, it will take some time and effort and investment to set this up right.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that kind of piggybacks.
Robbie.
I think that piggybacks a little bit too. Jill chimed back in and, this kind of goes, Dr. Franco, you said before, think about what you want to do, right? And we talk all the time about that unique value proposition. How do you set yourself apart, right? What do you want your program to be? How are you going to build it? Jill asked, they currently use a 503A pharmacy. She's asking, should they be looking for a 503A or a 503B? My first response would be, you need to understand what kind of program you want to have. How are you building it? Are they coming in? Are you sending it individual? Are you shipping it to them? But Dr. Franco, would you talk a little bit to that? I know, are you all still pre-drawing per patient and then giving that, or how are you guys doing it right now?
It's definitely a little bit of a mixed bag. Most of it goes from so all the people it's going directly, it's going straight from the compound pharmacies. They get the vial stuff things. Most of the pre-draw stuff is the very first visit, because we do still like to try and coach them. And this is some of the legal stuff that, if you're not coaching them in person, you should be having, like, we have a QR code, YouTube video stuff, because again, it goes to some of the legal stuff. If they weren't educated on how to do it, and then you could be liable, that like they drew up the whole vial, they didn't do it. So, there's no super easy answer. And the one thing I get into arguments with Mike and Sam about this with the law group stuff, because they'll give you the ifs and what's buts and tell you the Debbie Downer of both sides and so forth. So definitely got to be careful. Everything has to be tied to a patient. The prescription stuff, getting Jeff, I can get more into the nuances of A and B versus the bulk stuff, or B and A, the thing to every patient stuff. But you can still do it if it's a one-time or within 72 hours in the state of Texas. I don't want to speak for every state stuff in terms of how much medications you can give them. We do like, if the first visit, to do the first medication with them, because then we document that we did the first shot with them. We showed them, we educated them how to do it. And so there's lots of thoughts about the best way to do that, though.
Yeah, and Jill, we can certainly connect with you and dig further into that. And Dr. Franco's right, there's different regulations in different states. Of course, as he mentioned, we always want to run those things through legal, make sure your program, the way you're setting it up, is following all the rules. And then you're looking for a pharmacy that can supply you in the way that you need. So. All right.
I think, I'm answering questions. I think I've got all the questions. I think there's one more here. I know, Johnny, and this is something that I'll probably have people reach out. I do have a couple of people asking how much your program is. I don't know if it's still the same, so I won't share unless you want to, or we can just have people reach out. What would you prefer? Completely up to you.
Just reach out because we actually have a couple tiers now that we've set up, so that way we can send them everything because of some of the issue stuff here. We've tried to set up some different levels of I don't want to say some additional training, because that's some of the questions that we've gotten from a lot of people is okay, now I've got it, but how do I implement this, and then how do I market this? And so we've kind of set up some different tiers for people stuff. So I'll send you an updated everything. It'll be clear.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah, I know with the last time you were here, you literally had just started it. So yeah, so now it's a year in. So excited to kind of see what you have. Okay. All right, I think I've got all the questions answered. Is there any other questions for Johnny? I know we've gone over our time by a few minutes, and I just appreciate all of you guys sticking on with us tonight for an hour and a half. I know it went by quick. And Dr. Franco, thank you again so much for your time. I mean, it's just such a pleasure always having you. You always bring such a great crowd. Like you said, some of our biggest KOLs, I see some incredible names on here. So really, if there's no other questions, we're happy to. We're here. Jasmine has put her information, and Randy has put Jasmine's put Randy and her email in the contact. Please reach out if you have any questions. We will get you connected with Johnny. We can get you connected with Jeff. And if you have questions about Clarity and what we do, we're always happy to share as well.
Awesome.
All
Have a great night, guys.
Bye, Johnny. Thank you so much.
you.
Bye, everybody. Have a wonderful night.
Bye.
Lindsay, I saw Jill put her email in the chat. Did you get it already? I don't want to end this and